Welcome to Yissel Missile Productions channel. My name is Steven Yissel, and today we are on part 10 of the deep dive into Ed Leedskalnin and his coral castle. I see we got a few viewers here already. Great to have you all here. Hey Jay, I see you in the chat. He said, I'm just now finishing up part 9. Also, I loved the last live show. Thanks for the shout out. No problem, Jay. I mean, I want to keep you guys engaged as much as possible, and it seems to be a difficult task here, but it's all good. So I'm here doing my thing. You guys are enjoying it, and so yeah, today we are continuing reading this paper that was published, and again, briefly, it's from Michael H. Bradford, or no, the foreword's by Michael H. Bradford. It's from the Bradford Institute of Ultrascience, and Ray N. Stoner from Cape Coral, Florida, in May 1983, wrote this paper that's been put into a booklet form. It's 45 pages, and we are starting with page 20 from where we left off. So we're about halfway through. So I'll get this image slideshow going. I'm glad you guys liked Sunday's show. You know, I need to just make a mention here while we're live. After the show, I tried to reply to some comments that were on that video from Sunday, and YouTube kept telling me, I'm sorry, we've ran into a problem. Oops, that didn't work. In little red text. Actually, if I could pull that up, because I did a screenshot of it just for posterity purposes. But it was a very odd thing for that to have happened. Because I really wasn't... I was surprised that YouTube doesn't allow me to reply to my own, like, comments that are on my videos. Can you tell me that one? So that's a little weird to me. Yeah, actually. I got it right here. And then we'll get into the book, not the book, the paper here. Just little footnotes before we begin. But, yeah, I'm glad you all are here. Okay, so we're going to show you this window here, just to show you that I couldn't comment or reply, like I couldn't give any replies. Yeah, maybe this isn't... I'll just show you a screenshot of it, since that seems to be the best way to work, and then we will get started on this. So I only plan to go for about an hour today. If we go a little over, that's fine, but my goal here is to end at around 7. So that's just how it's going to be. And I want to keep it palatable for all of you, so those that like watching these deep dives here, we can stomach doing an hour worth for one part. Okay, so as you can see here, this was my Sunday show. But if you see the bottom portion, it basically says, "We were unable to add your reply. Please try again." Now, I did this from desktop and from my Android phone, and both of those ended up giving me that error. So, if you didn't get my message, Veronica, I did send it to Chad. I think he said he sent it to you. But I said there's no ill will here. I'm not speaking ill of anyone. I do, however, share my experiences and how people have treated me. And that includes totally writing off nearly 3 years of work that was supposed to be helping an individual. And they want to throw all that work away. That's on them. But at the same time, it hurts me. So if your time wasn't wasted, Veronica, then I guess you weren't hurt either. But if he wasted your time, yes, he has hurt you. All right? I don't like time wasters. I don't have much time. I don't have time to watch stuff that I would like to watch. I don't have time to do things that I'd like to do. And I only have 7 days in the week, just like everybody else. And now I got 3 days a week, moving into 4 days. 4 days a week now, with Sunday, doing these shows. But between all that time that I'm away from YouTube, there is only so much time to do things. So for instance, if I decided to commit my time to helping a screenwriter produce a feature film and collect evidence to prove the innocence of said screenwriter, and then not even a thank you for a lot of the stuff, like, and not even a proper goodbye either. And yet they're running off doing whatever. So I can understand if you feel uncomfortable confronting narcissists, but someone has to do it. Because when everyone stays silent, the narcissists reign free. When you stop noticing, or you stop letting on that you're noticing, then they win. It's as simple as that. Okay, now on to the main course. We have some pictures here from my trip. And like I said, we'll get into these pictures too. Yeah, I hope you're all having a good day. Don't let anybody talk down to you. And be confident in what you're doing. All right. So, page 20 from Ray Stoner. And we're continuing on. We were the previous pages, if you were following along, we were covering the measurements of the pyramids. All like height, width, the just the layout, the coordinates of where it's laid down. So let's begin. And we'll see how far we get. Today we should hit Coral Castle in this paper. Oh yes. There's plenty. This is going to be good, guys. Okay. Page 20. This visible geometric proof occurred twice yearly, calibrating the instrument by indicating where the Earth was in relationship to the Sun in its annual orbit. Adjacent to the Pyramid of the Sun at Teotihuacan, we find the Pyramid of Quetzalcoatl. Its location and message complement that of the Sun Pyramid. Quote, the Quetzalcoatl Pyramid multiplied by 100,000 gave the polar radius of the Earth. This led him, Harleston, to wonder whether the Pyramid of Quetzalcoatl, like the Pyramid of Cheops, could have been designed as a scale model of the Earth. From the various figures given by the Mexican Institute, Harleston made several mathematical reconstructions until he arrived at one which seemed closest to what the original might have looked like. To find that angle or latitude represented by the various steps, Harleston divided the length of each step by 60 to obtain the cosine of the angle of that latitude. The first step produced a result of 23.449 degrees, which corresponds to the latitude of the Tropic of Cancer. Other steps gave the latitude of the Arctic Circle and the magnetic pole. The system appeared to be the same. End quote. The sketch below is shown a mathematical model created by Harleston of the Moon Pyramid. As with the Pyramid of the Sun and Quetzalcoatl, the message is the same. It is readily apparent 0 and I want to say 12. I'm not even sure how to read this. Here, I'll pull this up here real quick, and then we'll get back to the slideshow here. I don't know. It's been too long for math with me. It's a square root of something. It's right there. Right there. All right. It is readily apparent that these are commensurated here in the same way 0 and pi are at the pyramid at Giza, as well as E and the royal cubit are at Stonehenge. I might be reading that wrong too. I'm sorry. So now we have a sketch below here that I'm bringing up. It's showing I believe the dimensions here. All right, cool. It's for you guys to read and screenshot later. Pause if you need to later. Okay. Continuing on. Finally, to illustrate the interrelationships of all the megaliths, the 4 numbers can be used in determining the dimensions of the citadel, the final building of the Sun Pyramid complex. Quote, Harleston concluded it might be worth investigating whether other geodetic, astronomic, or physical data could have been displayed in the actual geometry of the citadel's buildings. If, for instance, there were triangles whose sides contained information deliberately encoded by the builders. To eliminate the possibility of irrational or chance occurrence obtained from using any desired dimension to force answers, he put some elementary restrictions on his search. Any lines used had to fall on integral numbers. Any lines used had to fall on integral numbers. D lines used had to fall on integral numbers. Sorry, that's what I was having trouble with here. Any lines used had to fall on integral numbers defined by marker limits in the citadel, such as walls, edges of platforms, centers of platforms, centers of pyramids, edges of staircases, and so on. Triangles had to be right-angled and had to run north-south and east-west. Within these perimeters, Harleston soon found a score of Pythagorean right-angled triangles, and it was clear to him that the designers had a knowledge with exceptional accuracy not only of pi, but of 0 and 0 squared. Numbers which have a mathematically abstract relationship and which appear to be basic to the construction of this universe. And just in case I'm wrong, which again, narcissists can't admit they're wrong. If I'm wrong here, these 2 numbers, we got 0 and 0 squared. If I'm reading that wrong, then I'm reading it wrong. Not and not squared. In the case of pi, Harleston found 9 integral triangles, all of whose sides included principal citadelic dimensions such as 189, 246, 147, 165, and 216 units. Surprisingly, the triangle with the sides of 216 and 165 units produced the hypotenuse of 271.810596, extremely close to the constant e, the natural logarithmic base 2.7182818828 for Naperian logarithms. 12 more triangles gave E with exceptional accuracy. Harleston found that the probability of multiple reiterations of such numbers being strictly chance approached 0 as the number of repetitive displays increased. End quote. As the precision of the builders was so expressly contained in the workmanship of the pyramids, so has their astronomical expertise been passed down through the generations in an almost complete form. Take, for example, the misnamed calendar stone. Which I'm sure some of you have seen a photo of this before. And I'll bring it up closer too. Let's see if I can do this right now. Having that problem again with the microphone being right in front of me. All right. Let's see if we can get this going. But you guys probably have seen this before. I'll just read it from this, like, it's not a big deal. I just wanted to make sure you guys saw that. Okay. So for the sundial, it says 223 lunations, i.e. cycles of the moon's phase, equals 18-year eclipse cycle. 235 lunations equals 19 years equals 1 period of repetition of the phases of the moon on the same days of the year. 1,236 luminations equals 100 years of 365 days. 390 lunations, upper rectangle, plus 390 luminations, lower rectangle, equals 700 luminations, equals the same number, 780, as there are days in a synodic year of the planet Mars, i.e. the same number of days as it takes for Mars to move right round the heavens as seen from the Earth. A total of 585 lunations, almost the same number, 584, as there are days in a synodic year of the planet Venus. Yeah, and the way that these bits of information are laid down onto this photograph here, you can't see the lines where it's actually going to, but we can get a general idea here. But that's the, quote, calendar stone. So, moving on. Quote, Leon y Gama recognized the great Aztec stone as a sophisticated calendar. He believed its central cloverleaf design represented the legendary Aztec epochs of 4 suns. In the third circle, he recognized the 20 Aztec symbols for the days of the month and the hieroglyph for 4 ocelot. the day when the sun stood at the zenith over Mexico City. As for the two enormous snakes around the outer edge, Leedskalnin believed they represented the Milky Way. From the perfection and uniformity of the circles on the great stone and the exact division of it into parts, Leedskalnin said it was clear the Indians had a fine understanding of geometry. He also pointed out the ability of artisans capable of so perfectly engraving inscriptions on the stone through... my apologies. He also pointed out the possibility of artisans capable of so perfectly engraving inscriptions on the stone, though they were not supposed to have had tempered chisels, but only harder stones. The volume and weight of the stone, said Leedskalnin, showed the Indians' knowledge of mechanics, without which they could never have cut a stone weighing over 24 tons and brought it from its place of origin, a quarry assumed to be in the mountains near... I want to say that this is Xochimilco. Xochimilco. I have no idea how to pronounce that. I'll just say how it's spelled here. Xochimilco. Xochimilco or Xochimilco, 30 miles away, from which it had been dragged on greased rollers by large groups of natives to the main square of Tenochtitlan. I can't pronounce this one either. Tenochtitlan. And that is spelled Tenochtitlan. Leedskalnin, who considered the stone an Aztec clock by which priests could tally the movements of the heavenly bodies, believed that the holes found in the perimeter of the stone might have been drilled to insert gnomons, or small obelisks, and this word is spelled Gnomons. Gnomons. I would say that's how that's pronounced. Or small obelisks to throw shadows to indicate the days of the solstice, equinox, and zenith. At the beginning of the 19th century, Sir Norman Lockyer, the English astronomer who first recognized the astronomical function of the Stonehenge and the Egyptian temples, was amazed at the brilliance of the Mesoamerican stone calendar, which he found recorded not only the annual rotation of circumpolar star groups, but also the annual apparent course of the sun. He called it an achievement which has never been surpassed in primitive astronomy. At the turn of the century, archaeologist Zelia Nuttall considered the calendar the most precious and remarkable document ever unearthed on the American continent, and one of the most admirable and perfect achievements of the human intellect. End quote. It should be remembered at this point it should be remembered at this point that at all of these sites are found stones which we cannot move today, some weighing in excess of 400 tons. It would therefore follow that these weights were moved with a power of which we are no longer aware. Quote, the lay hunter's books introduced a startling new element into megalithic studies. From Watkins' observation that stone circles stood on straight lines or lays, Leys, or ley lines with other ancient sites was developed the idea that the circles were centers of a natural telluric energy, and the alignments on which they stood were paths of its seasonal transmission. One of the grounds for this theory was the repeated assertion by the archaeological dowsers that their rods or pendulums detected strong radiations from circles, and looms detected strong radiations from circles and other spots of traditional sanctity, and also from certain tracks leading up to them. This power also would seem to attract UFOs, for these too are the heritage of the megalithic sites. The author quoted press items on UFO sightings around Stonehenge as examples of the weird events, experiences, or notions which occur spontaneously in association with megalithic monuments, and are therefore part of their legitimate tradition. End quote. We got some reference books down here too. We're gonna have content for months. So 2 books here that are referenced are Mysteries of the Mexican Pyramids by Peter Tompkins, which was published in Toronto in 1976, and Megalithomania from Cornell Press, Ithaca, 1982, by John Mitchell. I would also like to look into the ley hunters, so that'll be another one for us to check out here. And that's the one I want to take a note of here just now. And again, if you guys didn't watch Sunday, I did talk about a new show that deals with ley lines. And I'll be covering this topic very soon, but not too soon. I'll say give it a few weeks, and I'll start having that coming in here. Alright, so now we have a full-page photo of Coral Castle itself. So let's take a look at it. So from what this looks like, this is the outer main road to get in. This is the parking lot. This is the entrance. Here's Ed's castle, his home where he lives, the 2-story one with the 16 steps. Here's one outer wall. Here's another. The rock gate, I believe, is right here. And you can kind of tell what the other ones are. But we've looked at a lot of these already. I'll zoom in close so you can see all the detail. So I believe the bottom part of this photograph is north, and the top is south, just for directional purposes here. Oh! Ed's castle's right here. Yeah. So I was right. I was still right. Off of the photograph is where the road is. And off of the picture here is where the parking lot is. So hopefully that clears the placing of everything up a little better. Yeah, you can actually see this is a road right here, which I'm not sure if that road is still there at this point because we didn't go down that far. All right, continuing on. Even in our modern age, many activities occur at these sites which are still classified as phenomenon. Consider the manifestations and unanswered questions at Coral Castle. This megalith was built between 1921 and 1951 by a man still remembered by many. The builder, Ed Leedskalnin, said that he knew, quote, the secrets used in building the pyramids of Egypt, end quote. In December 1951, Ed Leedskalnin died in a Miami hospital. With his passing went the secret of Coral Castle's construction. But it is apparent that Ed Leedskalnin was a practitioner of the ancient sciences of Germantia, not gematria, Germantia, and geomancy. So Germantia is spelled Germantia, and geomancy is spelled Geomacy. These, coupled with astronomy and Pythagorean mathematics, make Coral Castle a megalithic structure in the truest sense of the word. Here are achievements equal to those of the ancients. Ed's sundial is a good example, for it is the only one of its type known to exist. I was debating whether to show you the sundial here, but there's pictures in the book as well. The sundial will come up on this slideshow here, so just keep an eye out for it. Ed's sundial is a good example. Yeah, I'll just reread that. Ed's sundial is a good example, for it is only one. It is the only one of its type known to exist. It keeps perpetual time. One of the most unique characteristics about this type of sundial is the fact that no adjustment is necessary for the change of the seasons. The contour seen is the curvature of the earth in reverse. Really now? I feel like we're being lied to here. All right, use your own discernment. When the sun crosses low in the sky during the winter, the shadow is observed across the top of the dial. As the sun begins to rise in the sky with the approach of summer, the shadow drops. You know, I guess the way you could look at this is that if you have a half circle and another half circle, you have an enclosed system. You have Ed's sundial, and you have our sky. And that's where you have your curvature. All right, let's continue on here. When the sun crosses low in the sky during the winter, the shadow is observed across the top of the dial. As the sun begins to rise in the sky with the approach of summer, the shadow drops. By June 21st, the shadow is observed along the bottom of the dial. By December 31st, the shadow again has returned to the top. So, regardless of the season of the year, time can be observed without making adjustments. And there's 3 photos here. It says winter solstice, equinox, and summer solstice. And they're photos of Ed's sundial. Now let me blow this up here. These are photos of Ed's sundial going into each of the seasons. And again, this is printed in black and white, and this was used for paper. But, you know, I have photos as well that are much clearer. But they're not around any of those times that are shown in the photos there. So yeah, just keep an eye out for it in the slideshow. It's here somewhere. And then I'll go through all of these photos like I said I would be. But after we're done with all this. All right, continuing on. That's right, musing in stereo. That's why I said I thought they were lying to us, saying that Ed was using the curvature of the Earth. Because I think Ed is operating on a whole different scale. Yeah, I'm looking for the questionable line I read over here. Yeah. The questionable line in this paper is the contour seen is the curvature of the Earth in reverse. No, it's not. It's like a mirror of whatever's up in the sky. Glad you agree with me. Alright, continuing on. There are, of course, numerous other similarities between these megalithic sites. The average weight of the blocks at Giza is 3 tons, while at Coral Castle it is 6. So Ed's blocks are twice as heavy as the blocks at the Pyramid of Giza. You saw how little he was next to me. Look. In the west wall, Ed included a replica of one of the Stonehenge uprights. And it says here, replica of Stonehenge Trilithon stone. This is the first time we are hearing of this during this whole talk. You know how long I've been talking here? This is the 10th time. Look at that. That was never pointed out in any of the other stuff we read. Replica of Stonehenge Trilithon stone. Ain't that something? Oh, my ear's ringing now. Alright, so continuing on. This is good stuff. Ed's Coral Castle has stones that are twice as heavy as the stones at the Pyramid of Giza. That is incredible. Continuing on. Some of the vertical stones are bigger than those at Stonehenge. We're still talking about Ed's Coral Castle. Ed's largest stone, his masterpiece rock. Sorry. Ed's largest stone, his masterpiece rock, weighs in excess of 30 tons. And the average weight of blocks at Giza is 3 tons. And Ed moved that masterpiece stone to the new location. And continuing on, it says, these figures are all approximations, of course. For to date, no complete survey has been made, including elevations, block dimensions, and calculated weights. The estimates and purported astronomical alignments can be verified. So they're saying when a competent, complete survey is made, the estimates and purported astronomical alignments can be verified. Okay. Then the pieces of the puzzle will finally fall into place. Until that time, speculation must be focused around certain known facts. For example, the Polaris telescope does face due north, and on June 21st, the summer solstice, the sun arises directly in front of Ed's throne. It can also be assumed that there is some solstice and equinox information here, since this would have been necessary for the construction of the sundial. These facts, coupled with the stone representations of the planets Mars and Saturn, can leave little doubt that this site has astronomical significance. Yeah, musing in stereo, this, from what we've read from the past parts that I've covered here, there was a witness that said he was singing to the stones. So he was using sound frequency to manipulate the weight of these stones. That's what it's looking like here. And the Polaris telescope, I do have pictures of it on this slideshow. We won't go into it again here. I'm a very thorough person. I love doing this type of stuff. So we got the Polaris here. That's the one with the hole, or like you could look through the hole. Like you've seen these photos if you've been watching this with the slideshow. So I'm taking it. That's Ed's throne. Behind it with the hole in the top is the Polaris stone. And then there's a hole in a rock much lower to the ground where you could put your eye through it. And you could look at, what was this? It was like certain planets in different quarters because he has an X in that. There it is. There's the Polaris, and that's the largest one. That's the 30-ton one. That's the 30-ton stone. So you got to see it right there on the slideshow here. And the second photograph on this page is of the moon crescent, the planets of Mars and Saturn. There's another good photo of mine. So on screen to the right, that's my photo of the Polaris stone. I'm glad we got to see that before I went to go make this big again. So just give me a second. I want to make sure you guys are seeing these photos as clear as possible. And my camera doesn't always want to focus. My apologies on that. But my pictures are better, I say. Yeah, it just doesn't want to focus in. But you can see it pretty clearly. All right. We're in the thick of it now. all of you that are here now, buckle up. Continuing on. This 20th century addition to the megaliths from antiquity, all serving as astronomical observatories of the highest precision, can only be viewed with bewilderment, for only recently have the mathematical truths of these sites been understood. It was not conclusively proven that Stonehenge was an astronomical computer until Gerald Hawkins published his findings in 1965 in the book In Stonehenge Decoded. So there's yet another book for us to take a look at. These scholars are putting Ed Leedskalnin's Coral Castle right up there with Stonehenge and the Pyramid of Giza as being megaliths because of all the mathematical measurements that are baked in to this site. And I don't blame them for doing that. And that gives Ed a lot of credit for having extensive knowledge that I really wish he would have shared. I really wish. Okay, let's continue on here. We got 2 full pages. How then could Coral Castle be built using all of this knowledge plus the mathematics when this knowledge was not published until 14 years after Ed's death? Boom! I don't say that word too often, but that's one of those moments. The measurements that Ed used to create Coral Castle did not get discovered at these other sites around the world until 14 years after his death. I think that just notched up Ed's credibility a few points. Not that it was low at all to begin with. Ed's an impressive man. All right, continuing on. There are 3 possibilities. 1, this knowledge has not been completely lost. 2, Ed was a time traveler or an interdimensional being. And number 3, Ed was an extraterrestrial. Again. Few visitors to Coral Castle take seriously what they see. And you know, I can attest to that. Everybody was just mostly like spectators. And actually the tour guide, when I went there, after the tour, she came up to me, to pull me to the side, and she's like, I really loved your enthusiasm. Like, I was given my tour, and I loved watching your facial expressions and just how passionate you are into this. I said, thank you. I think this is fascinating. Here, I'm taking more pictures while she's talking about that. So on screen here, you just saw the sundial. And then here are the moons. But yeah, so even there, the tour guide noticed my interest in this whole subject here. All right, continuing on. When visiting, as in Ed's day, the guest is told a story of an immigrant with a 3rd grade education who built the home for his sweet 16 love should she ever decide to return. The home was built for their future family, and consequently, each piece has a story behind it. This was especially true of all the children's furniture. The entire story makes complete sense except his reason for building a Polaris star-aligned astronomical observatory out of 1,100 tons of coral. completely furnished with a sundial, 25 one-ton rocking chairs, and 9-ton swinging doors in the middle of the Florida Everglades? One wonders if there could be some other reason for all these chairs and room layouts. Perhaps it is simply that Ed told the people only what they wanted to hear. After all, it is possible that no one would have believed the truth anyway. We hit 7 o'clock, people. We're gonna keep going though. I'm deep into this dive. It's gonna take a while to come back to the surface. Okay, continuing on. While the spurned lover is the story, some of Ed's visitors have doubted the truth of it. One of them being Fred Graham. So we have an account that takes up almost an entire page. So we're going to read this quote. Quote, B.J. Cathy, a captain flying with National Airways Corporation of New Zealand and author of Harmonic 33 and Harmonic 695, The UFO and Anti-Gravity, presents a look into the Coral Castle happenings that Ed just might agree with if he were alive today. We have another author to do. We have some research to do here, people. Oh, it's Bruce. It's Bruce Cathy. That's one of the authors we're going to read from a book of his later, like right after this paper. B.J. Cathy. That has to be him. Bruce Cathy. So we're going to look this up. B.J. Cathy, Bruce Cathy, that's really similar if they're not the same person. So Harmonic 33 is one book. And then Harmonic 695, The UFO and Anti-Gravity. Perfect. Oh, we're building a mini library just on Coral Castle here. This is great. All right, again, let's start this quote over again because it's a whole page. Like I said, I'll read it as uninterrupted as possible. Quote, B.J. Cathy, a captain flying with National Airways Corporation of New Zealand and author of Harmonic 33 and Harmonic 695, The UFO and Anti-Gravity, presents a look into the Coral Castle happenings that Ed just might agree with if he were still alive today. Cathy's well-researched theory is that a vast power grid that governs the whole array of extraordinary and unrelated world phenomenon has been set up between some groups on this planet and the UFOs. The captain explains that there exists on our globe an all-encompassing grid, the interlocking lines of which correspond to the lines of flight of verified UFO appearances. Yes, harmonics. Once the discovery of a geometric pattern of UFO activity was made, it seemed to indicate a definite purpose in the presence of UFOs about our planetary surface. When the grid was broken down into mathematical coordinates, it was found that all values represented in the grid had a direct harmonic relationship with the speed of light, gravity, and Earth mass. When the author correlated all the different phenomena, he concluded, quote, all major changes of the physical state anywhere in the world are brought about by the harmonic interactions of those manifestations which we refer to as gravity, light, mass, electrical, and magnetic forces. Whew. That's right, musing in stereo. Jesus Christ created an amazing heavens and earth indeed. And I call him Yeshua these days. The controlled manipulation of these resonant forces would, in hypothesis, make it possible to move mass from one point to another in space-time. That is, to the eye of a theoretical observer, instantaneously. In summation, Kathy says, quote, other measurements from the Coral Castle position to the 0 degree and 90 degree longitude lines when they passed through the equator also yielded harmonics related to light and gravity. The final check of the distance between Coral Castle and the grid pole in the north dispelled any doubt about the site being in an ideal position to allow Leedskalnin to erect the huge blocks of coral with relative ease. So it is on a ley line. It absolutely is on a ley line, and I wouldn't be surprised if that ley line runs straight through the Bermuda Triangle. Measurements from all major points have the geometric harmonics necessary for the manipulation of anti-gravity. It seems that Ed Leedskalnin knew what he was doing when he deliberately selected his area for the erection of his famed Coral Castle. End quote. I don't believe Ed was a Freemason musing in stereo. There's nothing here yet saying he was a Freemason, but he could have been made a Freemason when he was out doing logging work up what it was like he went northwest to like what was it, Oregon or Washington or somewhere to go fell trees. And then I think that's how he learned how to I guess show the public when they showed up, like what he used, like the tripod to like lift with the pulley and everything. That knowledge, I believe, he gained from over there. And if he was sworn into Freemasonry during that time, we have no idea. We have no evidence of that as of yet. Unless I talked about it before, I don't believe so. But any of you that have been watching all through this whole series, let me know if we did come across any of that. Because as far as I know, he is not one. But he has a lot of characteristics say he knows how to do a lot of things, including the perpetual motion generator. Continuing on, the only problem with this last statement is that Ed did not start his work where Coral Castle exists today. He began the original quarrying at Florida City, which is about 3 miles away. After several years, he stopped work, loaded up everything, including the larger stones, like the Polaris stone, and moved to Homestead. There could be 2 possible explanations for this action. 1, Ed had made a surveying mistake, and when he became aware of it, corrected it, which I think that's exactly what happened. He thought he was on the ley lines in Florida City, and then he found out, no, there's even more anomalies in Homestead, and that's where I'm putting my Coral Castle. I believe that's what Ed was thinking. But that's all speculation on my part. Or number 2, there are always at least 2 dissimilar types of rocks used at all megalithic sites, some of which have had to be transported long distances. It is possible that 2 dissimilar rocks are needed to manifest an energy field. So here again, 2 dissimilar. Evidence of this type of manifestation is found in the phenomenon associated with crystal compression, known as the piezoelectric effect. We're getting into the good shit now, people. We're getting into the good cream of the crop right here. Ooh, yeah. When crystals are compressed, an energy is released which is similar to static electricity. It is luminous, takes a ball shape, and is consequently associated with ball lightning. And I believe you can take two pieces of quartz and clank them together and you get sparks from it. And exactly, that's the next thing it's saying here. I should just keep reading instead of putting my own. All right. This phenomena is easily produced under laboratory conditions. At the St. Andreas Fault in California, this phenomenon is relatively common where two massive earth plates are merging and sliding against each other. This compresses the quartz, causing piezoelectricity to manifest along the fault. Observation of this phenomenon is often mistaken for flying saucer activity. It is possible Ed used a form of this energy to help move the rocks and to help load the existing grid. Aloha, Big Island Beach. And no problem musings in stereo. I always want to make sure I answered the questions that you guys put up here. And I do like engaging with you here while I'm reading. Because this is an interactive, educational learning experience with like a dash of entertainment with my personality here. That was phenomenal. Piezoelectric effect. So this word is spelt Piezo dash electric. That is great. Okay, so we're moving on here. Quote, John Mitchell, author of The View Over Atlantis and City of Revelation. And that's another book that we're going to have to look at. John Mitchell, Michell. And the book is called The View Over Atlantis and City of Revelation. Is convinced that the Pyramid of the Sun at Teotihuacan, like the Great Pyramid at Giza, is one of the fixed points in a worldwide geodetic system laid out on a vast scale with great accuracy by some former civilization which possessed an advanced knowledge of science and what today is understood as magic. To lay out such a network of astronomical and geometrical lines across the face of the planet, says Mitchell, implies an advanced technology. He further believes that whoever built the system had some remarkable power with which to cut and raise enormous blocks of stone, vast astronomical instruments, pyramids, circles of pillars, cyclopean stone platforms, all linked together by a network of tracks and alignments whose course from horizon to horizon was marked by stones, mounds, and earthworks forming a great scientific instrument sprawled over the entire surface of the globe. This is the first time I'm actually giving this information that the ley lines may have been man-made by a past civilization. Because they're all symmetrical if you think about it, but I've never given that even a consideration that it was man-made. I was under the assumption this was all natural. I'm just going to reread half of this, the bottom half of this. He further believes that whoever built the system had some remarkable power with which to cut and raise enormous blocks of stone, vast astronomical instruments, pyramids, circles of pillars, cyclopean stone platforms, all linked together by a network of tracks and alignments whose course from horizon to horizon was marked by stones, mounds, and earthworks, forming a great scientific instrument sprawled over the entire surface of the globe. Incredible. Parts of the instrument are the Serpent Mound in Adams County, Ohio, and the Logan Stones in England. Now, I know about the Serpent Mound. But I don't know about the Logan Stones. I may have heard of them at some point. But I'm taking a note for later. Examples of Logan Stones are found throughout the British Isles. Interesting. A great many are near Dartmoor. What is it? Yeah. Dartmoor? Dirtmoor. Though few are still capable of movement. The most famous in Britain is found near Land's End and weighs 70 tons. So hold on. I say capable of movement. We're going to have to look into that later. The most famous in Britain is found near Land's End and weighs 70 tons. The largest known Logan stone on the planet is found at Tandil, Tandil, in the Argentine, South America. It weighs over 700 tons and rocks in the wind. Think about that. 700 tons. It rocks in the wind like a rocking chair. I kind of want to do the math on this too. Oh. How you guys all holding up? We only got a little bit more to go because I only wanted to do an hour, but it looks like we might do an hour and a half. So 700 times 2,000. 1.4 million pounds. Rocks in the wind. 1.4 million pounds. Just I can't wrap my head around it. That's why I like having these numbers. All the Logan stones tested for geodetic lines were discovered to be placed similarly to monoliths, and the inference is that they were deliberately sited with reference to the geodetic pattern. At Coral Castle, there are a profusion of balanced stones from the 9-ton East Gate to the 25 rocking chairs. And we have both pictures here. The 9-ton swinging gate and the pivoted circular stone. So let's take a look at that. And we've seen this before in the pictures that I've been showing. The rock gate, which now has a half fence around it and nobody can move it because it's seized up at this point. And the pivoted circular stone. So whatever maintenance and upkeep Ed was using on his rock gate, people didn't do it once he passed away, and so it just got lost to time. But thankfully, we had this other person go and purchase this location, and then it went to the it's a national landmark now, so it basically went to the state. All right, but it's open to the public You have to pay admission to get in. But it is what it is. I mean, the fact that it's still there. Like, any of you planning to take a trip to go there, like, do it soon. Like, don't wait 5 or 10 years. Because even though Coral Castle survived the 93 Hurricane Andrew, like, we have no idea if Florida is going to get hit with something that's like 10 times bigger than Hurricane Andrew, but it just needs to be a little stronger than Andrew to knock this thing over. This is the only thing that survived in Homestead. Like, everything else was wiped out. This was remaining. So, continuing on, while the exact purposes of the Logan stones is open to conjecture, it is clear that there was some reasoning and planning in their construction. A dolmen is a formation which until recently was thought to occur naturally, and dolmen is spelled D-O-L-M-E-N. As more and more were discovered, however, this concept had to be abandoned. Dolmens are now defined as rock structures consisting of 3 or 4 standing stones supporting a flat capstone. And they have photos immediately after that. And there's me standing next to a life-size cardboard cutout of Ed, who was able to carve and lift 300-ton-pound stones. All right. So here, on this page, it's showing the dolmen effect of the Florida table that's at Coral Castle. So I guess it has 4 different stones supporting it underneath. And then it also says dolmen near Dolmen Den in Wiltshire, British Isles. And then 3-ton heart-shaped table at Coral Castle. Dolmen stones. Coral Castle. So these people are finding similarities between all of this stuff. And it's good. It's good that there's papers published about it. We're able to sit here and read it, dissect it, go over it. Okay. Moving on. Again, it is unclear what functions these structures served. It is interesting to note how dolmens have been perceived by mystics and artists as well as scientists. I have to make the screen big again because there's another photo. This is the most I've ever talked about dolmens. I'll tell you that much. So, this next paragraph is going to talk about this photo. It's another dolmen. Above is a picture of an Irish dolmen painted early this century by a gifted painter. So it's a painting. Okay. Above is a picture of an Irish dolmen painted early this century by a gifted painter, poet, and mystic George Russell, A.E. Not sure what A.E. abbreviation is for. Notice the energy pattern swirling around the dolmen. Something is pictured as manifesting, which is outside the normal sensory range. Could this manifestation be what is known in the ancient world as the Earth Force or Mother Nature? Only further investigation will tell. Finally, Ed Leedskalnin, quote, "The Wizard of the Rock Gate," end quote. That's a cool nickname. I like that. The Wizard of the Rock Gate proved his mastership in architecture, Pythagorean mathematics, geometry, and geomantia in his use of mathematics at Coral Castle, and he claimed to have an education of a 3rd grader. I guess institution-wise, that's as far as he went, and then he started teaching himself after that. Here, shadowing down for all to see, is the mathematics of the solar system in the Pythagorean tradition. It is indeed with humble pride that Ed referred to this particular structure as his masterpiece. As the tour guide explains, Ed even went so far as to top this 30-ton wonder with a symbolic 4-stone crown. He called this, with tongue-in-cheek, his crowning achievement, and with good reason. Gonna have to blow this up again real quick. So this painting is actually showing, I guess, a different type of energy coming off the stones. All those lines going up into the sky, I guess, are significant in that painting. And that's one from Ireland. One more, we have the Masterpiece Rock at Ed's Coral Castle. There's some diagrams here once we read what they are. Thanks for joining in. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Thank you for being here. We got through 14 pages so far on this part. So let's carry on. Let's see how much farther we can get, and then we're probably gonna call it. Yeah, we're gonna call it in probably 10 or 20 minutes, and we'll continue on next week. Okay, so continuing on, this was the largest stone weight he ever moved, which in itself is quite an accomplishment. Unaided by modern technology, a 110-pound man with a come-along, chain fall, and simple hand tools constructed this architectural masterpiece. Yeah, right, Jay? Jay says, I feel accomplished when I make a successful rock stack. Yeah. Yeah, it's just, it feels good. So this picture again, the Masterpiece Rock, it is 4 pieces. There's 4 pieces on top of one stone. Unaided by modern technology, a 110-pound man with a come-along, chain fall, and simple hand tools constructed this architectural masterpiece. I really think Ed marketed Rockgate for visitors like this. Like, he wanted it to appear like he did it with these pulleys and stuff, but he was really using magnetics and harmonics. There is much more to wonder at, however, for here lurking in the shroud of Pythagorean mathematics is the solar system represented in 8 numbers. Based upon the universal converter, there's that number again. It's like 12 to the square root of 2. I don't know. It's that same. I'm not going to show it. Anyways, in an ancient universal equation involving sexagesimal mathematics, it is possible to form an Earth-commensurate mathematical equation based upon a multiple of the Earth's solar radius. The guide at Coral Castle explains how the 124-inch diameter, half-inch deep inscribed circle on the back of the square-faced block was to be a birdbath. This appears to be indicated by the declivity where Ed tried to hollow out the rock, or so the story goes. In reality, a cross-section reveals another explanation. And what is that? So we got other drawings here. It says, Note that there are 3 circles, one 124 inches in diameter, one 62 inches in diameter, and a third circular hole 18 inches in diameter. I'm trying my best to let it focus. There we go. So these are showing the measurements on Ed's, like certain pieces here. Okay. These dimensions plus the cube depth and perimeter provide 8 numbers which can be converted into solar systems commensurate numbers based upon the Earth's commensurate mathematics. The ancients established 12 as a sacred number, and it is half of a 24-hour, 60-minute, 60-second circle, which compromises the base of a sexagesimal mathematics. The division of a circle of time, 24 hours times 60 minutes times 60 seconds equals 86,400 seconds. The division of a circle of space, 360 degrees in circle times 60 minutes times 60 seconds equals 1,296,000 seconds. When 1/2 of a 24-hour day, 12, is multiplied by the converter 1.059 and then by 60 times 60 to complete 1/2 of a circle of time, a partial numeric solar system is created. Based upon the Earth commensurate polar radius, i.e. 124 inches, sides of the cube times 1.059 converter times 60 minutes times 60 seconds times 12 equals 56,000. Ah, there's a typo here. Oh. It's 56. It's either 56,000 something or 567,000. You didn't proofread your paper before you published it, bud. What number is that? 56,000, 7,285? No. I'm not reading that. It's either 567,285 or he added an extra number. I want to say that the comma was misplaced. You see that, people? Even if you go to a university and you put your work together, you still have errors in it. Which proves that everyone is human. Below appears a table containing the mathematical computations based upon block dimensions producing solar system commensurate relationships. Holy moly. I was going to start reading and there's this whole mathematical table here. So we have the side, one side of cube, 124 inches. So we have just all these numbers here. Radius of a circle, depth of a cube, second circle, radius, hole diameter, radius, 124. to the fourth power. I'll read this side panel here. So for one side of cube, interrelationships. Mean Earth density 5.6. The Earth's true diameter 7927 minus 7878 equals 48.04. 48.04 hours equals 2 days. 48.04, half the harmonic of 96. Radius circle, or radius of circle. The Earth's moon has a 28-day period. Neptune is 2795. 2,795 million miles from the sun. Yeah, that's another number I don't agree with. It has a mean diameter of 28,000 miles. Depth of cube. Sorry, I want to go back and show you. Gotta have both things up here. Okay. Depth of cube. Uranus is exactly 1,784 million miles from the sun. The sixth root of 39 equals 1.0589132. Second circle. Neptune's period of revolution is 165 years. Radius, relative of mass of Venus, 0.82. Hole diameter. Mars has a 687 period, or 687 period of revolution. I assume that's days. Radius, moon's mean density 3.4. And 124 to the fourth power. Venus has 225-day period of revolution. Okay, so we're moving on to more reading here. Thus, it is apparent how a square of coral carries a universal message down through the ages once the formula is understood. I need to reread something here real quick on my own. So these are actually dimensions of Ed's. I'm going to show it to all of you again one more time. Again, for all of you to pause if you need to, take a screenshot or whatever, if you want to do further research on your own. Because I don't know what any of these numbers mean, and I don't know how I would apply them. I don't know how I would begin to apply them. But that's what we're here to do, to try to understand all this. All this information relates to the Earth's polar radius, the smallest spherical geometric measurement, a constant which can never change unless the sphere were to be destroyed. Therefore, logically, everything should have been generated from this dimension, since this would be the unchanging geodetic base for all Earth relative measures. This is the message Ed left for posterity in his masterpiece Rock. With this understanding, the potential here become unlimited. I guess that's another typo. It should be potentials. With this understanding, the potential here becomes. It should be becomes, and they printed the word become. They left an S out. It should become unlimited. The potential should become unlimited. For Ed invited the scientists to come see what he was talking about. And we have a quote from Edward Leedskalnin on May 20th, 1946. Quote, "Millions of people all over the world have been fooled, including myself, by wrong drawings in geography books. I'm too used to reading the longer versions of these words here. I'll reread this quote. Quote, millions of people all over the world have been fooled, including myself, by wrong drawings in geography books in showing how the Earth's yearly path around the sun causes summer and winter. In fact, the drawings are wrong. I was lucky. I made a rock telescope and a rock sundial, and they defooled me. Now I know the right path the Earth follows. The scientists should come back to the rock gate, Homestead, Florida, and have a good look at the new drawing, the telescope, and the sundial, and then notice how they could affect science. I really like Ed's boldness. He was very confident in his work. So I wonder what was discrediting him at the time. Like, why wouldn't people believe him? And even with all of the stuff here, how did nobody see him work? That's another thing. There's no accounts of anybody seeing him actually moving these things. All right, moving on. Apparently, Ed is implying the control of what has come to be known as etheric energy. Ed called it his North and South Pole individual magnets, but down through the ages, it has come to be known by a variety of other names as well. In order for this energy to manifest, it would appear that there are certain precise requirements which must be met. Number 1, the structure must be precisely located upon the surface of the Earth. Number 2, it must be associated with some celestial event so that it prophesies the arrival of that event by its precise alignment on the day of a particular occasion, i.e., solstice or equinox. Number 3, it must be constructed in a specific shape. Number 4, the structure can only be built with certain materials. Number 5, activities or experiments must be conducted at certain of these sites at the split second of daylight on the day in question, so that this energy can be both activated and stored for future use. Again, another thing that has never occurred to me was to think that some of these civilizations were harvesting energy from the sun through the solar eclipses, the equinoxes, and the solstices. And from the crack of dawn to the black of night, they would harvest the energy. And then what would they store that energy for 3 months? And then eventually that would dissipate, and some of these structures were able to hold all of that energy for that period of time. Until then. That's what I'm thinking. Man, we're getting so close to the end here. I don't want to rush it though. We got 8 pages left. I think we should just leave it. I don't want to stop right now though. We'll keep going until there's a good cutoff point, because we're right in the middle of all this stuff. So let's keep going. When these known qualifications were met and a unifying element was added, the grid functioned. The one item found at all 4 sites, which has not yet been discussed, is the universal solvent, water. Water wells and underground water manifestations are concentrated at all 4 sites. Apparently, water serves as a storage battery for etheric energy. Down through the ages, water has always been associated with the megalithic structures. At Coral Castle and Stonehenge, there is water. While at Giza and Teotihuacan, there is evidence that water was once present. No expert disputes the fact that water plays an important but unknown role at these sites. Quote, in 1939, Reginald Allender Smith, keeper of the British and Roman Antiquities Department of the British Museum, read a paper to the British Society of Dowsers, of which he was a member, in which he said at the center of every prehistoric temple there would be found a spot from which a number of underground streams formed a radiating pattern. He called these spots blind springs and said that they existed at Stonehenge, Avebury, spelled Avebury, Stanton Drew, Stantondrew, 2 words, and all similar sites, as well as every prehistoric barrow. I have not heard of some of these spots. We're going to have to see what Avebury is. We're going to have to see... What's this other one? Stanton Drew. All right, continuing on. Quote, the famous French archaeologist Charles Diat showed, with the assistance of the famous dowser M. Merle, that every megalithic monument, without exception, has cited in relation to the underground streams which abut across, which abut, cross beneath, or surround them. In fact, it was found that all prehistoric burial sites found in France were surrounded by underground streams. The famous Stone Avenue at Carmack, which consists of great stones set in a number of parallel lines several miles long, are aligned upon 2 underground streams running parallel to each other and above them, creating the Stone Avenue. End quote. And we got another book here. It's called The Pattern of the Past. By Guy Underwood. Guyunderwood. Quote, it would appear that the geological patterns dictated the site layout and determined the position, size, and shape of every stone, as well as whether or not these stones should be standing or tilted. Either the manifestation of water creates the temple shape, or the temple shape creates the water phenomenon. End quote. That's interesting to think about. Quote, because of the relationships between megalithic monuments and the rays of the heavenly bodies at certain seasons, there is a suggestion of alchemical processes at work involving the marriage of cosmic forces and the vital energies of the earth. The geometrical forms of the symbolic numerology in the ground plans of stone circles are also those of traditional magic. Thus the consensus of lay hunters' opinions is that stone circles were used in connection with an elemental science involving natural energies which may or may not be recognized today. End quote. Another author elaborates, quote, observations of the influences which affect the water diviner suggests that a principle of nature exists which is unknown to or unidentified by science. Its main characteristics are that it appears to be generated within the earth and to cause wave motion perpendicular to the earth's surface, that it has great penetrative power, that it affects the nerve cells of animals, that it forms spiral patterns and is controlled by mathematical laws involving principally the numbers 3 and 7. The earth force manifests itself in lines of discontinuity, which forms a network of the surface of the earth. The lower animals instinctively perceive and use these lines and their behavior. Hold on. The lower animals instinctively perceive and use these lines, and their behavior is considerably affected by them. End quote. So again, we are talking about ley lines, which has also come up in the Bermuda Triangle deep dive that I am doing on Thursdays. Wow. So here's a new question for all of you. Are these lines natural or man-made? So we are now on page 40. We did 20 pages today. We're going to stop it here for today. We'll continue next week. These last 5 pages cover the Pyramid of Giza, water lines, aquastats. Wow. This will be good. That's at least going to be an hour's worth of content there just for the rest of that paper. So, thank you everyone. I appreciate that you spent the time here with me today. I came on here under a very difficult time crunch, so I made sure that we got this done for all of you today because you guys are wanting to see me, as I've said to some of my other interview guests. You guys all are here because you want to see us. You're interested in the content that we're producing here, and I thank you very much for that. And yeah, next week will be part 11 of this deep dive. And in the meantime, on Thursday we'll have our Bermuda Triangle series. On Saturday morning, we will have our Chicago film industry deep dive. And on Sunday, we'll have our general chit-chat stream where we can follow up with stuff that I've unofficially dubbed Let's Talk About It. All right? So I hope you all have a good rest of your day. And until the next one, class dismissed.